Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. We welcome you to our online session Eklavya. Class 9. The topic is Natural Vegetation and Wildlife, Geography subject. Natural vegetation means the number of plants, trees, bushes, it can be herbs, grasslands, etc. And wildlife is accommodating the animals from lion to rat. We're going to learn the topics separately in different parts. And today's topic is natural vegetation that you're going to learn in detail. Now, natural vegetation means what? You're going to learn this term in a very different way as it's totally interesting topic as natural vegetation is determined as the growth without human intervention. So it's referred to garment. Garment means cloth. So it's like a cloth made out of plants and trees on this earth in a particular area. And before mo- modification done by man through his activities such as farming, mining, lumbering, etc., for the development. And natural vegetation has been helpful for humans and animals. People use natural vegetation for food, building materials, whereas animals like herbivores use it for food alone. Now let us go into this in detailed manner. Now this picture is illustrating you the growth in a particular area by nature's help. It's not being planted by humans or watered by humans. It grows on its own. So what are forests? So in natural vegetation, you are going to learn about forests. Forest is a thick growth of trees and plants in a place by its own. So under natural vegetation, you're going to see various concepts related to it. Now, particularly forests. Now, what they are? Forest refers as wood. It is also refers as a wood, which is in an area with high density, there is of thick growth or closely grown of trees in a particular area. So it is called woods or a wood. So as with the sites, depending on various cultural definitions, tree forests cover about 9.54% on the earth's surface, 30% of total land area. So 9.4% are tree forests. Though they once covered much more, about 50% of total land area. So they function as habitats for organisms. So it's a home for many organisms, hydrological flow modulators, and soil conservers, constituting one of the most important aspects of biosphere. Biosphere is nothing but the growth of trees, plants, and animals surviving and with the human beings that been originated with the help of physical uh, spheres, then water, hydrosphere, and atmosphere. So these all come into contact. So that place where the life been existing. So this forest is due to the biosphere. It's on this place where all the contexts of hydrosphere, lithosphere, and atmosphere, this life, that is forest like natural vegetation, is been existing in the place called biosphere. Now, there are various species accommodating in this biodiversity. Biosphere consists of various varieties of species, and it means biodiversity. The variety of species, whether plants, trees, the flowering plants, as well as the animals, species, birds, etc. Now, forest or the natural vegetation is accommodating and it's a home for all these species. That is especially the fauna. Now, there are about the statistics mentioned here for your learning. So, 47,000 relates to the plant species, and India stands. So, you're going to be learn about these species in perspective of India. So, plant species 47,000 is making us India in 10th position in the world and 4th in Asia. And 15,000 flowering plants, about 6% of the world's flowering plants that exist in India. So 89,000 animal species, 1,200 bird species, 30% of world's total birds, and 2,500 fish species. So you're going to see that all these are accommodated in number of species that exist in the biodiversity. 12% of the world's stock fish and 5% to 6% of the reptiles and mammals. Now, what is virgin vegetation? Now, the community of plant is being naturally grew without human intervention and be not being disturbed. That is undisturbed. So, this kind of growth is related to virgin, not being intervened or disturbed. That means undisturbed totally by humans for very long time. So it's under natural vegetation, you're going to learn as a virgin vegetation that is not being disturbed or influenced by human beings. So it is called virgin vegetation. Now, what factors are responsible for this huge variety of flora and fauna? First of all, what is flora? Flora is nothing but trees and plants, and fauna is animals. So it's related to land, relief, land. The first factor. So nature of land influences the type of vegetation also. You would have learned earlier in lower classes that the vegetation the type is being influenced by the climate, the land, etc. So land, how it influences. Now the various climatic zones having the influence over the land. Now, which are the zones that are influenced by various climate? They are called as a climatic zone. Now, in that climate condition, the land will be influenced and its relief, that is what kind of land it is, whether it's plain, plateau, desert, etc. So fertile level of land, that is in the plains, it's more devoted to agriculture. So undulating and rough terrain like plateau, where grasslands and woodlands develop and gives shelter to variety of wildlife. And also soil related to lands, definitely soil. Different types of soil provide basis of different types of vegetation. So that also will influence. Now sandy desert that supports cactus and thorny bushes. Wet area that is tidal forest, marshy deltic where water is more, uh, and mangrove. These are the type which are deltic vegetation. And hilly region, hilly slopes. So the relief, the land relief and the soil both are interconnected. So the depth of the soil have coniferous trees. The hill slopes with some depth of soil will lead to have coniferous trees, which cone-shaped leaves. So climate. Now the other factor that helps the trees or the natural vegetation to take place is climate and in that temperature. The character and extent of vegetation like equatorial forests, thick dense trees growth. It's due to the daily rainfall and temperature, high temperature due to which evaporation and in turn heavy rainfall. So around equatorial region, you have Congo forest or Amazon forest. So these are the example for thick, dense trees that grow, and it is having a canopy, and no one can easily penetrate in this kind of forest. So these are the examples for the temperature and the climate related things. So humidity in the air, precipitation, and the soil. So on the slopes of Himalayas and the hills of Peninsula, you can see that height of 915 meters, the fall in temperature affects the types of vegetation. So, what kind of vegetations in altitude? It is high altitude, cold climate, so it can have an influence with kind of trees like coniferous, snowy area, very high mountains, cone-like shaped leaves. So you will have alpine vegetation. Now, photoperiod. The variation of duration of sunlight at different places is different according to the latitude and the altitude. You have been learning climatic zone as I have mentioned in the beginning itself. So climatic zones that shows the various climate oriented regions that are due to the latitude, and altitude is nothing but the high lifted mountains. As you go up, the climate falls, the temperature falls. So duration of the day. So you can see the Arctic and Antarctic. The duration of day is related to 6 months, or very early the sun sets, and very short days are in the cold, in the high altitude or the high latitude regions. So same way the near to the equator, sun straight to the head. So due to the longer duration of sunlight, all these are related to photoperiod. So according to the latitude and altitude and the temperature, the vegetation is being influenced. Now, precipitation. As I have mentioned that equatorial and Amazon forests are very thick and dense. It's because of everyday rainfall in that region because it's near to the equator. Now, in India, related to Indian perspective, we are learning this topic. So, southwest monsoon and retreating northeast monsoons bring in almost entire rainfall. So you can see that in northeast of India you have equatorial, and you can see the southwest in the Kerala and Karnataka area you have the equatorial forest. So areas of heavy rainfall, dense vegetation is prevailing, and less rainfall areas you have less dense forests. Okay, so I think you have understood here. Now, why are forests so important for human beings? As I introduced the topic itself, I told you how all the forests are helpful for human beings and animals. Now, here you can see that it has been uh, renewable resources made by human beings with their knowledge. So, what kind of resources they are? Now, they play a very important role in enhancing the quality of environment, first of all, and they modify local climate, control soil erosion. Now, the roots of the trees are always helpful to control the soil erosion. They hold the soil and regulate stream flow and support a variety of industries in its development. Provides the livelihood for the many tribes are dependent on this forest or vegetation, and the primary activities are dependent on this. Offer panoramic or scenic view. There is tourism. If you go to Ooty and all, you can see that for tourists are more into to visit the forest. Eh, So it's a good recreation, and it controls the wind force too and temperature. So forests are very, very important to make the environment feasible for human beings and other life. Now provides humus to the soil. Yes, dry leaves and trees remains will make the soil more humus, and also the wildlife shelter is forest. So these are the important points that are denoting you to learn how the forests are useful. Now, India's natural vegetation has been under challenges and changes due to various factors. Now, why? What are they? Now, the growing demand for cultivated land. During British time, when the cultivation became commercialized, now lot of forests were cleared. Now from then onwards, and early times during ancient period also, when man started developing, he in India especially around Gangetic area, you can see that lot of forests are being cleared in history. You can learn that in a lower standard, and you have undergone this experience of learning. So development of industries and mining took place after independence in India. During British rule, the industries were introduced, and later on it kept on being an important source of employment and economic growth. So urbanization, as man started developing from rural areas, job opportunities became the root factor for urbanization. And as industries developed, the urbanization took place. So for all these, the trees became the more so important source, and it became an important factor for clearance too. So the natural vegetation been deteriorated during this time, and overgrazing of pastures in the forest areas is also one of the reasons for its factor to make a change in the natural vegetation. Now, these are the illustration that shows that how development has hindered the growth of natural vegetation in past years. Now, what is an ecosystem? Ecosystem is nothing but you can learn that how plants and animals are interdependent or interlinked. Without each other, they cannot survive. So they are totally interdependent in a particular area, and they are so close to each other's development too. As so, physical environment help these lives are surviving. So it's called ecosystem, and human beings are part of it, as they are the intelligent animal. They have dominated the other lives in this ecosystem. Difference between flora and fauna. By now, you could have understood that forest is a place where both flora and fauna are prevailing. So their life are existing. Now, flora means plants, as I introduced, I had mentioned. It's in a particular region or a period listed by species, number of varieties of trees and plants are told, and there are grasses, bushes, shrubs, etc. Now, fauna species of animals of a particular area too. So, fauna is nothing but they are the animals and birds. Now, Indian flora, as I noted that Indian perspective, we are learning this topic. So, 47,000 plant species I have highlighted earlier, 15,000 flowering plants in the world total percentage. And India also is rich in non-flowering plants like ferns, algae, and fungi. And flora range from one found in tropics to the Arctic region due to the country's varied relief, temperature, and rainfall conditions. Most of the Himalayan and Peninsula regions are with the indigenous vegetation. What are indigenous? They are not mixed by any foreign species. They are grown in this land for a long period of time without any influence of foreign species. So it's a natural growth in this land. So it's a indigenous. These species are found in North Indian plains and Thar desert. Owing to destruction of forests for agriculture and other industrial development, several plants are being deteriorated or being extinct is ending its number. Now, vegetal cover of India in large parts is no more natural because during British time, by known factor or unknown factor, the influence has been taking place and the natural vegetation has been stopped. The growth of natural vegetations has reduced and the artificial vegetation has been influenced. So they are called exotic. Now, except some inaccessible regions, the Thar Desert or Himalayas, the vegetation are desert. So only in the Himalayan region and Thar deserts, where man cannot go easily, the vegetation are in a safe manner grown. But other areas, they are being influenced by man's intervention, as I said, like traders or during British time, when during their rule, they have been influencing in the growth of natural vegetations. But what they had done is they had cleared the natural vegetation and made as a scientific research for us as a growth of development in research of new varieties of trees, and that is not going to be a natural vegetation. So the growth of natural vegetation has been deteriorating after some time of years when man's influence from abroad being more. Now, what are biomes? It's a very large ecosystem. Very large ecosystem is a large area covered by forest. Also on land having variety of vegetation and animal life. That is called biome. And plant formations are used as a basis of their groupings or identification. So plant formations are classified further and made into groupings or identifications. So, what is this grouping and identification? We'll be learning in other part. So, by this, I conclude the topic that you have learned in this part that what is natural vegetation. From earlier class, you have been learning the types of natural vegetation and the wildlife. So, this class you are going to learn in an elaborate manner, and this introduction is being given to you which is a bit different from the earlier class learning. As in history, also you learn pastoralism, which is related to natural vegetation. So it's connected to your other subjects. So while I introduced you, you kept on learning that how natural vegetation being on this earth and in India's perspective, how indigenous forests being grown and how they have been deteriorated or reduced due to man's intervention and development. So by this I end the topic of introduction and see you in the next part. Thank you. And please don't forget to press the subscribe button to view our video.